Segment 1. The Aztecs.
They began as nomads who settled the Valley of Mexico in AD 1200. By AD 1500, they had built a capital city that rivaled the glory of London and Paris. Just 20 years later, though, one of America's first great civilizations would lie in ruins, destroyed by seekers of gold. The Aztecs built an empire the same way the Egyptians, Greeks, and Romans had, by conquering their neighbors. After settling in the fertile valley at the heart of present-day Mexico, this small but fierce band of warriors struck out against rival tribes, eventually bringing them all under Aztec control. As their empire grew, the Aztecs built a spectacular capital, Tenochtitlan, to honor their gods. Fortified on an island on Lake Texcoco, Tenochtitlan boasted magnificent flat-top pyramids, crowned by temples to their gods. Inside, the Aztecs paid their debt to the sun god. The Aztecs believed that unless they offered human blood to the god, the sun wouldn't rise the next day. But as important as religion was to the Aztecs, it was their economic system that fed the empire's growth. Conquered tribes were taxed heavily. They were required to send fine cloth, food, and jewelry to the Aztec emperor, or else. At the height of their empire in the early 1500s, the Aztecs were ruled by a man named Montezuma. Like many European kings of that time, Montezuma was seen by his people as a divine ruler, a ruler appointed by God. Montezuma's kingdom covered 200,000 miles of Central America and included more than 25 million subjects. His army was 400,000 soldiers strong. Despite his empire's wealth and power, Montezuma was about to face a crisis that would threaten everything his people had built. The Spanish conquistador, Hernán Cortés, had arrived in Mexico, and he was headed for Tenochtitlan. But from the reports he received, Montezuma didn't recognize Cortés as a foreign invader. With his white skin and beard, Cortés resembled a figure from ancient Aztec mythology, the great god Quetzalcoatl. Banished from Mexico in the distant past, the legendary Quetzalcoatl had vowed to return one day and reclaim his throne. It so happened that Cortés arrived during the year 1 Reed on the Aztec calendar, the exact year Quetzalcoatl was supposed to return. Was this white stranger an Aztec god? Montezuma decided not to attack, a decision he would regret. He allowed the Spaniards to reach the outskirts of the Aztec capital in November of 1519. Before long, Montezuma realized his mistake and sent gifts to appease the Spaniards. He sent envoys bearing gold, hoping the strangers would take the gifts and leave. All Montezuma's gifts did, however, was prove to Cortés that the Aztecs were rich with gold. Cortés was now more determined than ever to reach Tenochtitlan. When he finally got there, Cortés was not disappointed. With a population of 250,000, Tenochtitlan surpassed even the largest cities in Europe. Montezuma was equally impressive. For his meeting with Cortés, he dressed the part of the New World's most powerful man. As the two sides approached each other, the air grew thick with excitement. Cortés explained he'd come in peace, the ambassador of a great emperor from far across the sea. Montezuma welcomed him as a most honored guest, and invited him to stay in one of his palaces. Friendliness, though, soon gave way to fear. News arrived that the Aztecs had attacked Veracruz, the colony Cortez had established along the coast 200 miles away. Montezuma denied responsibility. But Cortez did the unthinkable. He placed Montezuma under arrest in his own palace. Amazingly, the emperor submitted without a struggle. To this day, no one knows why. Montezuma's authority gradually weakened. The Aztecs did stage an uprising against the Spanish invaders, but not led by Montezuma. The Spaniards claimed Montezuma was stoned by his own people. The Aztecs insisted he was murdered by the Spanish. Whatever the case, by the summer of 1520, the situation in Tenochtitlan had reached total chaos. Cortez and his men decided to grab as much gold as possible and make a run for it. With the Spaniards retreating, the Aztecs might have recovered. But the conquistadors had brought with them something much more deadly than rifles and cannons: disease. The Aztecs were devastated by what they called the Great Rash, smallpox. This highly infectious and fatal virus left them stricken with high fever, aches, and blisters all over their bodies. More than half the population would die of the germ. Cortez and his army returned and laid waste to Tenochtitlan. The Aztec temples were burned. In 3 months, the mighty capital was reduced to ashes. Cortez would go on to build a new colony on top of Tenochtitlan. Thousands of Spaniards would flock to Mexico City, the capital of Spain's new empire in the Americas.
Try this activity to complement the Aztecs. In Aztec myth, Quetzalcoatl was prophesied to return and reclaim his throne. What is a myth? How is it different from fact? Create a myth that the Aztecs might tell about the landing of the conquistadors.